Good morning. Our topic this month is wholeness. And wholeness is the central idea of the teachings of the Centers for Spiritual Living, the most important teaching and possibly also the most challenging of all the things we teach. Because on one hand, we sense it and we are drawn to this idea. But on the other hand, we get to struggle with how to reconcile this world, our own lives, to the idea that there is one overarching wholeness in which everything is connected. Wholeness is typically thought of as undivided, no parts missing, complete. So with this in mind, wholeness is the big picture view. So it can't be limited to one point of view or to one party or to one nation or to one gender or to one religion, because that would not be wholeness, that would be incompleteness. Wholeness must embrace all of the voices, all of them, the disagreeing ones and the agreeing ones. Oh, as much as I would love to eliminate all the opinions that disagree with mine. The result wouldn't be wholeness, the result would be dictatorship. I would be a good dictator. Embracing all the voices doesn't mean I get to or have to agree with all the voices. It just acknowledges the presence of other voices. It allows for them. I was thinking about a friend of mine who was telling me about a problem he's facing. Every time he posts a comment on Facebook about the political situation, a family member of his posts a rebuttal. And so he's just getting all upset about this. And I was trying to think of how to advise him what to do about it. So I thought, I know what to do. Block the family member. That's what you do. Block him. But you know the effect of blocking somebody? It's kind of like denial. It doesn't really prepare me to meet the complex challenges of this world. It isolates me. And so then I don't get to witness and feel the pains, the frustrations, the fears, the hurts that are part of this world. I kind of live in an isolated ivory tower. Wholeness has to go beyond me. It has to go beyond a sense of what's on the surface to the good that is for all. So wholeness has to consider all beings. It has to consider all life. It has to consider everything. I've been reading some disturbing news about the United Nations recently. A group, 54 African states got together to join forces so that they could object to the United Nations Human Rights Council, which has put together a special investigator, an independent investigator, to help protect gay and transgender people worldwide from violence and discrimination. Now, this group of 54 African states, and they're fully expecting at least another 20 nations to join on with them, they are implying that this kind of protection doesn't belong to the human rights system at all. It just gives me a lot of appreciation for the diversity discussion group that takes place in our center every second Sunday of the month at 1:30 p.m., where people get together to read about and discuss their experience of race, gender, class, ability, ethnicity in this world of ours, in our country. I appreciate that, because wholeness requires that we go beneath the surface of what is. And you can't really understand wholeness without embracing diversity or complexity. or subtlety or ambiguity or contradictions or differences or mystery. You have to go deep. A friend of mine who I was working out with him, and he says to me, I heard you wrote the book on meditation. I said, yes, indeed I did. He says to me, well, my doctor says that I have to meditate. So why don't you just give me the 5 bullet points about meditation so I can see if I want to do it or not? And I said, no. Right? Because how can you? That won't give you the whole picture. You got to read it, or some book. And not only that, you have to practice it. You have to embrace meditation during the times that it's working and during the times that it's not working. You have to get close and personal. You have to go below the surface, beyond what is simple, beyond the simple answer. You'll never understand meditation with a 5-bullet summary. Wholeness is like that. Life is like that. You won't understand life from reading a meme on Facebook. It's more than that. Wholeness is infinite, which means there is endlessly more to it, more of it to witness. I can't say, I got it today, I understand, so tomorrow I don't have to deal with it. No, because tomorrow, wholeness has prepared a whole fresh new batch of diversity from oneness to deal with again. Wholeness is more about unity and connection than it is about separateness and differences, and yet it goes beyond the unity in one single group. Because if unity in my group means that your group suffers, then that's not the allness of wholeness. And very importantly, allness is unearned in that it is just the reality of being. It is what is. And then ours is the journey of realizing that. My colleague in Napa at the Center for Spiritual Living there, Reverend Julie Schmidt, she writes, nothing external will ever truly fulfill us until we live from our innate wholeness. If we are carrying around the mindset of division, then we will continually see ourselves as separate, no matter what is going on. Instead, imagine if in each moment we could see each other through connectedness, our interconnectedness. How would we interact with each other? And with this world, how would we think of ourselves? This is not about drawing fullness into you, but allowing the presence of wholeness to emerge from you. So this month, we're invited to let our focus our attention on this idea of wholeness as an innate reality. And let it come out of us. Because I may not understand how I could possibly be connected to everything that's going on in this world. And yet, can I let my focus on wholeness affect how I show up, how I speak about it, how I interact? I may not understand why this group or that person or that nation or that religion chooses or believes or does this or that, or how I can possibly be part of that. And still, can I let my focus on wholeness determine what I will say, how I will share, how I will care? It's important for me to try to keep an attitude of wholeness while at the same time being authentic, really authentic about the experience of those times when wholeness seems to be flying out the window. I read this on the internet. certain churches foster a maddeningly upbeat pep rally atmosphere in which anyone experiencing a crisis must either cover it up, shape up, or ship out. Gratefully, the article was not about our center. But I sure know what they mean, don't you? Oh, and I want to know that there is a place for everyone here at the center, especially during those times when we're not feeling peppy, when we're feeling less than whole or perfect or complete. Now, we teach here that our thought is creative and that we participate in creating our experience of this world, and that we get to choose our attitude and responses. And here's the part that is sometimes forgotten, we teach also the importance of being compassionate with each other when we are facing the difficulties of life's challenges. Because we don't always behave like the high-minded spiritual beings we know we are when we are panicked, when we are afraid, when we are worried, when we are stressed out, when we are sad. We have a temporary departure from our awareness of our innate wholeness. I remember several years ago, I was in a home supply store, and somebody had rested a plate glass window that was broken up against the counter, and I reached for something and I cut my hand on it, and there was blood everywhere, just everywhere. Now I'm going to just confess to you that I know it's important for me to look good. It's important for me to look like I'm composed. I also know that I don't cope with blood very well. And I know that I hate to make a mess. And I don't like to inconvenience other people. And I know people may not realize this about me, but the truth of it is I'm kind of shy in public and I don't like to attract attention. It's the truth. So put that all together, and you got a disaster. And so I started to cry uncontrollably. Not because it hurt, because I had lost control of my personal presentation. And I started to act in a way that was less than high-minded or centered as I would have liked to have been. And I can just imagine somebody in the crowd looking, going, whew, that guy needs to take some of those classes at the center. He needs to chill down. I've been thinking about our nation and the election process. Now, some people are feeling really stressed right now, slightly edgy, uneasy to the point where irritation can flare up quickly. Lack of focus and an inability to stay centered on things like our innate wholeness. The election is fraying our nerves. I think it's like we are going through a wounding. And not everyone is showing up as high-mindedly or as centered as they might hope. And stress can do that. Whether it's from an election or from a divorce or from a child in trouble or from a relationship in transition or from an illness, stress can do that. That's why I love the recommended book of the month, Through the Flames by Alan Locust. I put it up here so you can see the cover. And he's a meditation teacher. And he tells the story of his survival from a deadly plane crash and how it profoundly and spiritually transformed him as he worked through the harrowing aftermath of debilitating, painful, disfiguring burns. And the role that compassion, kindness, and love and wisdom, how that all played its part in his healing journey to his sense of wholeness again. So the title, Through the Flames, is not a metaphor. It's what actually happened. And in the beginning of the book, there is a poem by Dina Metzger, like a dedication, and it says, "A sacred illness is one that educates us and alters us from the inside out, provides experiences and therefore knowledge that we could not possibly achieve in any other way, and aligns us with a life path that is ultimately of benefit to ourselves and those around us." Surviving the plane crash, it seems, brought Alan to an insightfulness and wisdom that, who is to say, that he could not possibly have achieved any other way. I heard a speaker once refer to experiences like this, and he called them a dark gift, one that a person wouldn't necessarily consciously choose, but one that nevertheless ends in transformation of a profound kind. I think our country is going through a sacred illness, and it's educating us, and it's bringing our issues from the inside out, and they are ancient issues. They didn't begin with this election. And the other side of this journey, who is to say, could be our evolution. And while we are going through it, we don't seem to be able to keep our focus on our interconnectedness, on our diversity, on our shared humanity, and on all of the things that are at the heart of being America. Where it's a temporary departure, and as each one of us returns to the contemplation of our innate wholeness, one consciousness at a time, through patience and compassion and determination, regardless of the outcome of this election or any other election, we are sure to be restored if we remember to return to the big picture of our innate wholeness. That article I mentioned earlier about the upbeat, peppy churches, it goes on to say, there is a tendency among these church groups to promise people that if they dedicate themselves to the teaching, their lives will suddenly be better. When that doesn't happen, people can tend to sink into serious depression. Well, when I began my studies at a Center for Spiritual Living so long ago, things did get suddenly better in my life, except in those parts of my life where they got suddenly worse. I have to admit, I don't understand what was going on. I have to admit, I felt like kind of a failure. And it took a wise, kind teacher to point out to me that it is the way of things. It's natural. That it is the way of things that when a person starts to do the work on a block in their life, it has the effect of bringing up everything that put that block there in the first place so that they can be dealt with. For example, I might decide, I want to have deeper relationships, and then everything about my quirky personality comes up for me to evaluate and see how it's getting in the way of that. Or I might decide I want to embrace more prosperity in my life. And it brings up everything in me about giving and receiving and sharing and gratitude and control to show me exactly how I built that block in the first place. Things, it seems, can get worse before they get better. And what I like to remember is that while things are traveling through that worse, better part of life, wholeness isn't changing. Wholeness is permanent, infinite, It's an eternal state. Oh, it's so easy to look at someone going through their stuff and get all judgmental about them and forget that their wholeness isn't being diminished by their journey. It's difficult. It can be difficult to understand what a person is going through if I've never been through anything similar myself. It's easy to dismiss somebody for being overly sensitive about things like, I don't know, weight, gender, race, religion, or whatever, until one day I experience being discriminated against for something I have no control over. And that's when understanding and compassion arises, because now I've experienced something similar and I begin to identify. But I can't have all the experiences that other people have. I can't have their lives. I can, however, still try to understand. Even if I don't have another person's life, I can try to see where they are coming from. If I let myself be sensitive to their point of view, then what emerges is called empathy. And empathy is a very important part of wholeness. Empathy allows me to accept that there are other points of view. Empathy allows me to take down walls. It's the antidote to separation. Empathy allows me to look for similarities without giving up myself. It's the recipe for inclusivity. Empathy allows me to embrace the complexity of being. It's more realistic. Let's return to that first list of wholeness. Wholeness is the big picture. It's important for me to remember that wholeness doesn't end because this or that happened. Wholeness embraces all voices. It's a reminder to me, don't let any of the voices frighten me. Wholeness is inclusive of the good of all. It's a reminder, if my good is at your expense, do I even want it? Wholeness is deeper than what is on the surface. It's a reminder to me, don't let other people make up my mind for me. Wholeness is infinite, endless in its complexity. A reminder to me, so don't settle for easy. Wholeness is unity, but it's more than that. It's allness. Reminder to me, don't settle for mob mentality. And wholeness is the unearned, permanent reality of being, and there is nothing that you can do to earn your wholeness. It doesn't depend on what happens to you. It's a fact of being. Well, then how do I let that emerge from me? Well, Alan Locust in Through the Flames, he offers an ancient Buddhist practice to embrace wholeness. He says throughout the day, as you're moving around at any time and you cross paths with somebody, silently offer them this ancient blessing. May you be happy. When you're in traffic or standing in line at the supermarket, silently offer everybody you see this ancient blessing. May you be happy. Or when you're in a disagreement with somebody or reading something on the news that's freaking you out, silently offer all this blessing. May you be happy. Or when you're alone or sad or even frightened, silently offer the blessing to yourself. May you be happy. Or when you're sitting on Tuesday with us at the High Watch meditation during the election, offer this blessing to our whole nation. May you be happy. Because kindness Why kindness is the best pathway I know of that leads to a profound experience of wholeness. I want to read to you the postscript from Ellen's book. One day in early November 2013, I went for my occupational therapy appointment. A woman walked up to me and said, "Paul?" No, I replied, "Alan." She said, "Oh, yes, Alan. Do you remember me?" I looked carefully. "No, I'm sorry." "I'm Mary," she said. "I was one of your nurses in the burn unit." "I'm afraid I was in bad shape at that time," I replied. "I don't think I would recognize anyone from that burn unit." "Oh, that's okay," she responded. "You look fantastic. I can't believe how good you look. We all thought you were, we thought you were going to..." I helped her out. "You thought I was going to die. Well, your injuries were so bad, your burns were..." A pause as she swallowed. "But you were always so kind, so kind." The elevator door opened and I said, "I'm afraid I have to go. I have a therapy appointment. It was good to see you." She stopped me and said, "May I give you a quick hug?" "Of course." As I held her, I could feel her start to sob. She wiped her eyes and said, "I'm sorry. I'm just so happy you're okay." "Thank you," I replied. "Me too." The elevator doors closed and the crowded car ascended slowly to the 18th floor. And I thought once again about how, when someone suffers injuries to the extent that I had, they do not usually get to chat about it a year later. Gratitude, humility, and awe swept through every fiber of my being. I had survived. I was alive. Why and how barely hold passing interest anymore. What I do with my remaining time means everything. Above all else, when I'm finished with my days, may those who knew me say, "He was so kind." I'm thinking, after the election, when you look back at your life and your participation, how will you want people to have experienced you? And will the way that you show up and speak up and act illustrate an unwavering conviction in a wholeness that is the underpinning principle of all life? Here is the ancient blessing that is at the heart of Alan's teaching. I invite you to receive it by breathing in, breathing out, and letting your eyes closed. May all beings be happy in themselves. Whatsoever living being exists, without exception, whether weak or strong, whether tall and large, middle-sized or short, whether very subtle or very gross in nature, whether visible or invisible, dwelling far away or not far away, whether born already or not yet born. May all beings be happy in themselves. Let no one work to undo another. Let no one think badly of another. Either with anger or with violent thoughts, one would not wish suffering on others, just as a parent would wish over a child, the only child, with their life. In just the same way, develop a mind unbounded towards all living creatures. Develop a mind of loving kindness unbounded toward the entire world, above and below and all the way round, with no holding back, no loathing, no foe, standing, walking, sitting, or lying down. As long as one is alive, let them resolve upon this mindfulness. as we recognize together the one creative power from which all creation emerges, that is the source of everything that is seen and everything that is unseen, of all life and all reality. We have a sense of our oneness with it, and through it, our kinship with all life. And from this unity, we realize our ability to love, to create, to understand. And we understand how it all comes from our innate wholeness. And so we yield this prayer, surrendering it, so to speak, letting it go into the law of mind, feeling the terrific agreement of the spiritual universe, as if we have come to our senses. And so it is. I